Welcome, welcome to the 14th edition of the Goa Arts and Literature Festival. We started in 2010. We are now in 2000s. Move over to a little bit, guys, so you can look, you can watch. You can also sit up there on the left. Move all the way up. Make yourself comfortable. You're you're here for a wonderful treat, which is two of the treasures of India and especially of Goa are on stage with us. Um, Settle down. Please take your seats. Please take your seats. Excuse me. We're going to begin now. Okay. Um, Friends, I'm very pleased for this particular session, and this is an extraordinarily rich festival all over again. We're going to have people from all over the world. We have a tremendous number of delegates who have wonderful things for you to hear and listen to, and I hope you enjoy that. One of the things that makes the Goa Arts and Literature Festival a little bit different is its grounding in where we are in India's smallest state, in the culture of India's smallest state. And one of the things that has always struck me and has always been valuable, and Jerry's been a big part of it, and it's part of the success of this tiny little festival, is that it has mimicked the form, some existing cultural forms that exist in Goa. And one of those, which has always been very influential and meaningful to me, is that of the family gathering. Now, my family, like many Goan families, gathers once or twice in the year, perhaps at the end of the year particularly, sometimes at Ganesh. Goan families do, and they come from around the world. It's a rainbow family. It includes people from every ethnicity now, and yet when they come together in Goa, the coming together of the family, they are contradictory elements, they harmonize themselves. Everything comes together very beautifully when we meet as a family, and all conflicts and contradictions are resolved on the plate, in the music, in the architecture. It's seamless, it's beautiful. And this has been a very meaningful way in which we have expanded and enjoyed the Goa Arts and Literature Festival. So this is particularly meaningful for me today, this session today, because it's led, of course, with this wonderful book by Jerry Pinto, who doesn't require too much of a introduction in Goa, but we are super proud of him, as well as India should be. Um, he has written many wonderful books. Of course, the one that everyone must read, one of the contemporary classics, is the novel M and the Big Whom. But I also love his anthology of Goan writings, which is the best extant. If you're interested in writings from about in Goa, we are actually launching a couple of them here. Jerry's is still the gold standard, and so that's something to really look out for. And here, this is a book which is incredibly meaningful. I read it. I was at a session. There were 1,000 people in Bombay. I'm sorry we can't do that in Goa, Jerry. But look at all these wonderful young people sitting here at your feet. Um, this wonderful book is about palliative care, and I was struck by it. It's tender. The whole approach is something in which I learned a lot. I learned a lot about how so all of us offer care in different ways in the course of our lives, and how that should be palliative. And it's all particularly meaningful for me. And there's a family element here because one of the people in the book is Dr. Armida Fernandez. So Dr. Armida Fernandez happens to be my aunt, my beloved paternal aunt, and I've grown up seeing her extraordinarily palliative care to all of us, including those who are ferociously living like myself. But she has been palliative in her approach to all of us. She is palliative towards the approach to everyone around her. She has been palliative in her approach towards Dharavi and to India's most vulnerable people, and that too the most vulnerable people in India's most vulnerable children who are newborns born under distress. And she's been doing this for decades and continually providing solutions, practical solutions, ambitious solutions, game-changing solutions that have affected millions of lives. I wrote quite kind of sarcastically that after she won the Padma Shri Award, which she won a few days ago, actually. I, being her nephew, I read the citations for all the other 144 people who won Padma Awards. And I realized one thing that I'd like to stress in this is that they often say that women have to do twice as much work to get the same recognition. Now, the case of black people in America, 3 times. Auntie Armida has done 3 times as work, and I'm so proud of her. And I'm so happy Jerry has agreed to do this session with Dr. Armida Fernandez. And I'm going to leave you in the hands of Jerry Pinto. But this is Auntie Armida's first public appearance in Goa after she won the Padma Shri. So a big hand for that, please.
Let the roast begin. I want to start by telling you two short stories. One story is just to embarrass Armida so that she'll feel you can clap again. And the second story is a Goan story, and therefore even more beautiful and even more tender in a way. So Dr. Armida was a young doctor and went to some kind of conference where she presented a paper. And in the paper, she noted that the neonatology center in the hospital in which she worked had a death rate of 60%. 60% of the babies were, of the newborns were, sorry, sick newborns were dying. And apparently everyone laughed at that conference and said, like, how can you possibly be running a hospital where sick newborns are dying? So she came back very embarrassed and told her senior that, I was laughed at. And he said, are your statistics correct? She said, yes. He said, then go do something about it. And most people would think, that's not my job. I'm not a neonatologist. I don't know anything about sick newborn babies, not Dr. Armida. So she went into the neonatology center and she started asking, what is it that actually causes these babies to die? And what was causing the babies to die was what was supposed to keep the babies alive, the incubators. The incubators had to be cleaned meticulously, and no one was there to clean them. So what did Dr. Armida do? She threw out the incubators. Now, that sounds counterintuitive because you think these kids can't even hydrate their bodies. They're going to lose water and die. Rub them down with coconut oil, she said. They can't keep their bodies warm. Put angle poise lamps on top of them and warm them, she said. And what she did was so brilliant because she said, the one person in the world who is really committed to keeping that child alive is the mother of the child. Open the doors of the neonatology ward, let the mothers come in. These are slum mothers. Yes, seriously. These are slum mothers who are not supposed to be like, in general, we think of, I have a friend who makes her maid have a bath before she cleans the house, right? So we think of them as dirty people. And letting those mothers in with their energy, with their love, with their passion to keep those children alive, switched it round. 80% of those children were now living and leaving the hospital. You'd think that would be enough. You'd think you'd settle down and think, hey, yeah, done. But Dr. Armida noticed that they weren't coming back for checkups, for follow-ups, for getting their shots. So she said, where are they going, these children? And she was told they were going back to the slums, getting diarrhea or some other infection and dying. And so she started Sneha, where she went into the slums and started helping them with their change. And what she says so beautifully is that in order to effect that change, she could no longer be a professor. She could no longer be the dean of studies. She had to now be someone who was helping them on their terms. She couldn't lecture. She couldn't order, but she could connect. And once she started connecting, those babies began to live. And that, I think, is palliative care. where you don't see the person in front of you just as a series of numbers, just as a test, just as a disease, but you see them as a person in the full round. You see them as human beings with lives, and those lives affect their health, and their health is affects those lives. It's something that you've got to deal with. It was such an inspirational starting to the book, because she was one of the first interviews that I did, because when she lost her daughter, her only beloved daughter, to cancer, she started working in palliative care as well. It was such a beautiful beginning. I thought in some ways the whole book was going to be blessed, and it was, I believe. And I then came to Goa, and I heard, I can't sit. And there was another story that, that so touched me, because it was a story from a doctor who again looked at, not at a patient, but at a life. She saw, this is Dr. Ina in South Goa, she saw a young man coming in. The young man was brought in on a stretcher, and she told her nurses, go out and see whether some palliative care can be done. And they went out and asked the boy, he was about 28 by this time. At the age of 8, he was in the school, and a sudden thunder shower burst out. Okay? And the thunder shower meant he scuttled under the stage and hid there. Okay? And the stage collapsed on him. And he broke his back, and he was now on the bed. He was bedridden. He was paraplegic, right? He's 28. 20 years he spent on that bed, doing nothing, staring up at the ceiling, because he's been told, because someone forgot to tell him, he thinks that if he moves too much, the urine tube that has been attached to him will pop out and he will die. So he's been lying still. Dr. Ina knew this was not true. She knew that it was possible for him to sit up. But he had to be convinced. He could not be told, he could not be ordered. So the first job she told her nurses and her her psychiatric social workers was, get him to sit up. Okay? And when he sat up, the next step was a wheelchair. The next step was work. The next step was adjusting to society again. The next step was coming back into life. And that is palliative care, ladies and gentlemen, in its round. Goa, you have two glorious palliative, you have palliative care in North Goa, you have palliative care in South Goa. You can take it to every village. You have the apparat, you have the comunidad, you have the panchayat, you have the say, you have the ability to talk straight, to walk into the sarpanch's house and say, where is our palliative care? Do it! Do it for yourself, because tomorrow you're going to need it. In a short while you're going to need it. It's not an old age thing. If a child of 8 gets a diabetes diagnosis, his or her life or their life changes immediately. From the next day, that child cannot go to school and take that toffee, which everybody brings for the birthday, and every happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday, toffees are put down. Hi, Deepika. He has to say, no, I will not take it. How is he going to do that without help? How is he going to adjust to a new life? That's what palliative care can do. And that's why we need palliative care to drill down to every single village until every person has access to it. And don't tell me it can't be done. It has been done in Kerala. Goa, you're next. And you guys, change has always come from young people. Always. Okay? So it's time for you to go to the asilo, to go to the hospitals, to go to GMC and ask questions. Where's the palliative care? Who's in charge of the palliative care? Can I have it in Fatorda? Can I have it in Ponda? Can I have it in Khosume? Wherever I need it, why do I not have it? Because it is my right. Yes. Okay, Dr. Armida, now I'd like you to tell us the arc of your work in palliative care. Where did it start? One of the wonderful things I think is that many doctors did not know about palliative care in that generation. So would you like to start with that?
Thank you, Jerry. Embarrassing introduction. But yes, we are here to talk about palliative care that is also close to me, but very important for everyone. Like Jerry says, for everyone sitting here and for even the younger generation. Because when I lost my daughter, we are both doctors with medical colleges, the best of hospitals, and she died. And we saw her suffering and we suffered with her. And there was nothing that we could do. And after she passed away, I said, I'm sure we can do something to relieve that pain. And I went out and found, oh God, there is something like palliative care. And being a doctor in a medical college, I had not really paid. I must have heard about it, but I had not really paid attention. Then I realized what really is palliative care and what we can do about it. And palliative care, when you go, all of you all must have sometime gone to a doctor, you go with symptoms. I've got a cough, cold, I've got pain, a headache. So the doctor prescribes and sends you away. Even if you have a chronic disease, and most doctors, maybe Goa, they have more time, but in Bombay, they spend 5 minutes, sometimes 10 minutes, because they have so many patients to see. I don't blame them. They have no time for the patient. They prescribe and the patient goes away. But when there is suffering, when a patient suffers, what we do in palliative care, we look at the entire picture of suffering. And suffering need not be just physical suffering. You've got pain here, pain there, that's physical. I've got fever, cough, I've got diarrhea, that's just physical suffering. Yes, you can have medicines, you can treat that physical suffering. But in suffering, you also have another aspect, and that is the emotional or psychological suffering. People with chronic diseases, and in palliative care, it's not just cancer. Please remember that. Any chronic life limiting disease. So it could be cancer, it could be stroke, paralysis like Ira's patient, it could be dementia, it could be Parkinson's, it could be chronic obstructive lung disease that's becoming so common. So you're not going to die immediately, and you may live for years. But in that process of years, it's not just physical. The physical suffering is treated by doctors. You also have emotional. You get depressed. What is this I have? What is happening to me? You get angry. You get angry. And there are people who commit suicide because they can't do anything. So there's that emotional suffering that has to be addressed. And in palliative care, besides the doctor, you have a counselor that addresses the mental aspect of suffering. And then, of course, there's the third aspect of suffering, which where I work across the slums of Mumbai, most vulnerable, and that is social suffering. I remember during the COVID times, we were trying to reach morphine to patients in pain, and that patient said, "Doctor, दवा क्यों? खाने के लिए खाना नहीं." So here there are patients who don't have food to eat, one, social suffering. And in the slums, slums of Mumbai, somewhere on the top of hill, Antop Hill, if you have stroke, you have paralysis, Parkinson's, how do you take that patient to the toilet? And remember, the slums, you don't have a whole family, and you just have one working member, that person goes to work. How does that patient go? They need diapers, they need commodes, they need crutches, they need wheelchairs like Ira gave a patient. So that's a whole, and they need sometimes just food. And that's a whole spectrum of social suffering. And finally, the spiritual suffering. I'm such a good person. I did no harm to anybody. Those thugs who are doing all sorts of things in the world, they're just having a gay time. But me, such a God-fearing good person, why has God given me this suffering? So that's the spiritual aspect. So in palliative care, we're looking at each aspect. Physical, the doctor looks after. Mental, the counselor. We have a social worker for social suffering. And finally, a spiritual leader, sometimes a social looking at. And there are physiotherapists, there are are the people who come. So you have a whole spectrum of people looking at palliative care. And that's why I think it's time for us to look at a patient as a whole. And like Jerry says, which is so true, you look at the mortality rates and the morbidity rates in different states. Kerala is the best. Kerala is now a palliative state. They're doing a phenomenal job. Goa has got very good, and this is for mortality. Of course, Goa should be next. And besides, this is the popular people here from different walks of life. But the doctors, they themselves need to be convinced, because doctors say, you're there, you've got a disease, treat in the hospital, put them in hospitals, put them on ventilators, let them die. And for everyone here, you must realize that if you have a chronic disease, you're in your 90s, you have dementia, they will still put you on a ventilator. You die alone in an intensive care, machines all around you, your family not there. And therefore, today, there is a living will that one can make, saying that I don't want this to be done if there's no hope for recovery, so I can make a living will. Or if you get into the hospital and there's no hope, you sign, I don't want ventilation. Go home. That's what we say. The best place to die is really at home with your family around you, soft music, say prayers, say whatever you want. Tell the people who are dying, I love you. Thanks for being there for me. So this can be done at death. I know people are scared of talking about death, but have death cafes. Say this is, people can die, what can you die of, and what the way we want to. So that really is palliative care, Jerry.
The reason I think palliative care looks at pain like this is because it started with a woman and it started with a love story. Okay? It's a beautiful, strange love story. She was a 6 foot tall woman, very privileged. First World War breaks out and she wants to do something to help people. She wants to go out and help people, so she trains as a nurse. In the process, if you're tall, as everyone tall knows, you will have a back problem. And in turning a patient or something, she must have affected her back, so she could not be a nurse anymore, right? So then what she did was, she still wanted to help. So she became an almoner. And as an almoner, which is now a social worker, she went to a cancer hospital and found that the terminally ill patients were relegated to the end of the ward. They were kept somewhere where no one could hear them because they were often moaning in pain. The doctors didn't look at them because they had lost that battle. They were not ready to treat them. And she began to go into that space. Across the sea, at the same time, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross is actually looking at dying people and starting to do her investigation into those 6 stages of death. It's just fascinating that these two women are operating across the pond, as it were, right? And in that ward, among the terminally ill, she meets a man who is dying. He has 6 months to live, but they fall in love. And when he dies, he leaves her 500 pounds in his will and says, when you set up a home where people like me can be treated with dignity, I would like to be a window in that home. And Cicely Saunders then starts the St. Christopher Hospice, which is still the gold standard. And recently I read a little Instagram post which says, I've got the best job in the world. I'm the guy who wheels around the drinks trolley in the St. Christopher. So they actually give them a little drink also if they want to. Like, okay, you're dying, gin and tonic, now what harm? What a lovely idea, right? So it is actually a woman who understood, and Cicely Saunders broke down pain. She said there's not just physical pain, not just emotional pain, not just spiritual pain. She said there is also bureaucratic pain. When you have to confront a hospital which is like, go there, do this, fill that form, do this. There is psychological, social, economic pain. How am I going to pay for this? If I am paying for this, does that mean my children can't go to college? All that because a woman looked at it. And I think, it's very interesting that Dr. Fernandez, and in Bombay we have I had the good glory of meeting lots of really powerful women who all, Dr. Marianne Mukadan, Dr. Fernandez, Dr. Ira here, Dr. Meena, all women, all working in palliative care, because this is, I think, so importantly a holistic thing. And I wonder, would you like to talk about the idea of, palliative care as a holistic?
The first thing, let me tell you, for all the men, there are enough men working also in palliative care, please. Huh? So, so there are men and women, whoever cares, whoever feels, really can do. So I think there are now, you want me to talk about what's happening in Bombay? Okay, so
Wherever you like.
Ramana, there
Okay,
is
just a moment,
yeah.
Dr. Fernandez. I'm passing around this pad. If you would like to receive on email the formal living will, put your name, put your email address down, and return it to me at the end of the session. I'm starting with you, if you want to. Yeah. Poor thing, she's not even thought about living. But in case you don't want to just pass it around, and then it can go down.
I
and
think I can. I think you can take it around. Yes.
No, poor thing, she has to listen to that. Write your name if you want. Yeah. You can delete the email afterwards. Huh?
So let me tell you what happens really in most cities. One is the need is very huge, and if you say that, why aren't we doing more of palliative care? And let me tell you, I also have a soft corner for the reason in our country. In most countries over the world, the death rate of preventable diseases and other diseases, there are very few people dying of infection and other such problems. In a country like India, and not in states like Kerala and perhaps Goa, there are so many other causes for death, and therefore the government focuses on preventable causes, infant mortality, neonatal mortality, non-communicals, yeah, tuberculosis. So the focus is there, and therefore palliative care gets the back burner treatment. So there is a reason. But you can do it simultaneously. So you can do it simultaneously, but it takes time. There are many states in India. The need is huge, and I think in India, not even 0.02% of people, zero point 0.2 at least, don't get palliative care or access to palliative care. So it's a huge gap. So there is need to start. So what one does now is that there are few states who've got a government resolution, GR, to start palliative care. Kerala, of course, got it long ago. You have Karnataka, you have Andhra, and now just recently, last week, so we are cheering, Maharashtra also has got a GR. And I think state of Goa should have also, that is one thing you can say, that we have a GR to promote palliative. Once you have a government resolution, then all the medical colleges, all the primary centers, whatever hospitals you have, will then try and start palliative care. So that's one. The second thing is that palliative care is a huge spectrum, and therefore you can have outpatient. So people come to the outpatient, they are treated, but they're not prescribed and sent. They talk to the counselor, they talk to the social work. So it's a different spectrum. If they need physiotherapy, they go for physiotherapy. So you're paying extra attention to these people who need it more. So that's an outpatient. The third thing is, in a hospital, you have wards for different things, but there's no ward for palliative care. We were just discussing, I was on the phone this morning with one of my friends, and her friend is in the hospital in Bombay. She says the family decided she's got a brain hemorrhage, she's got a heart problem, she's old, and they said no treatment. But the hospital has no ward to shift the patient to. So if you keep in the ward, then patients say, oh, it's still there and you can be there with the patient. But most 99.9% of hospitals don't have a palliative care. But that's something you have all over the world. I think people all over the world have. Europe, United States, Canada, Australia, all of them have. It's well established in those countries. So what? The third is that what we do and that our center does, you can do palliative care at home. So what we have, instead of a doctor visiting, we have a team, a doctor, a nurse, a counselor who visits that patient at home. So the doctor would prescribe, and if there are tube feeds, there's a tracheotomy, a hole in the neck or a intestine, all that, bed sores, wounds, that is treated by the nurse, and a counselor then stays back and counsels. So that is home care, and you have all this. And finally, you have a hospice, the one like the St. Christopher. In Bombay, we were very fortunate. Dr. Luzito started the hospice in Bandra. You have one in Goa, in, I think, Lotoli, and you have one in Delhi. So you can also have a hospice. So there's a spectrum of things that are. And hospice is for those at the end of life. You can't look after that patient at home, but only for cancer. Most hospices, because it started there, you look after only, even here in Goa, it's only for cancer patients. Now we are starting hospices for non-cancer patients as well. We have one started in Bombay, Sukun Nilaya, which is there. So you have in the center, my center is under my NGO, the big NGO Sneha that was started 26 years ago, Romla Palliative Care. I've named it after my daughter. We do an outpatient and home care. And I want to tell you, in the outpatient with something, even you don't even have to be a doctor. We have Mondays and Fridays for dementia patients. They all come. They have activities, fun, game. Dementia patients love singing and music. So the 2 days are for dementia. Then we have Tuesdays for the senior citizens. We call it Silver Circle. And it is such a lot. People just love what is happening. We have almost 90, 100 people coming to that small center that we have. Thursdays we have Parkinson's, and most important, see, can't have doctors, nurses, these professionals. So we have support groups, and I think that's so important. There's something you all can happily start here in Goa. Support groups. All cancer patients, their family members, more, it's not just the patient, but the family members who suffer as much as in palliative care. That's why we don't look at the patient, we look at the family members, counsel the family members, have support. Let's give you an example for our dementia. All the family members have a support group. So they say, this happened to my wife, or this happened to my father, this happened. So, this happened, I dealt with it like this, you can do this. So that support group, lay support group is and this is easy to form. Even centers here to look after, at least daycare for dementia patients or for Parkinson's. So these are things that can be started by society in general. So that is something that can be. So we have a whole spectrum of how we can care for these chronic life-limiting diseases.
Just in case you feel like you could take palliative care to the individual level, so you being a palliative carer, I have one word of advice. If you meet someone who is ill, if you meet someone who's just had, don't say, is there anything I can do? Because they can't think at that point. Tell them what you can do. Say, I'll bring food. Something like that. An act of kindness can be your step into palliative care. You can take it down to that level, but make it a specific, possible thing that you can do. I'll look after your kids, you take mom to the hospital. I'll come and give you a meal, a non-diabetic meal on Monday. Then you are actually going in there with an agenda and with a solution. You're not offering, and if you don't feel you can do that, then please don't say, is there anything I can do? Just be quiet and witness the person's pain. Be there for that moment, be attentive to their pain, and that also is palliative care. To listen quietly and to pay attention to another human being's suffering.
I want to add what Jerry says.
Close.
I want to add what Jerry says, that in Kerala, this is something that has been started by Dr. Raj Gopal, community palliative care. And if you go to Kerala, the shoemaker on the road, someone who's repairing watches, someone, the priest in the church, some teacher, all of them are volunteers in palliative care, and they do just what Jerry says. You don't have to go really out of your way. It's just next door neighbor, someone on the street, and see that. Can you take them to the hospital? The children, look after the children, what they can do. So that is community palliative care. And this is, I tell people in Bombay, they say, oh my God, what good work you're doing. But I don't have time. You're in a building with so many people. Just check on the senior citizens and get them together and have some fun. You can have games for senior citizens on a Saturday evening, or you have someone who needs help. Like you said, can I get a meal? So you don't have to go far and away from, say, your college or school. I don't have the time. You can help one small little thing. Auntie, can I buy your vegetables today for you if you can't go out? Can I do? Usually we say don't meddle with money. Old people get very confused. So other things that you can do for them. Can I take you to the hospital? Can I drop you somewhere? So little things. Everybody at all age can reach out, and it all forms part of, and it is community palliative care.
Before we open for questions, Dr. Fernandez, would you like to talk about collusion?
What really?
Collusion, the patient not being told, the family not
Yes,
being
yes. You know what? This is very typical in India. Now you go to the hospital and they diagnose cancer. So all the relatives, don't tell my mother, don't tell my mother. They don't want the mother to know she's got cancer. And they're saying, take this treatment, take that. Mommy, don't worry, nothing is wrong, you will be all right. Now, what happens to that mother? She knows something is going wrong. She has to go to hospital so often. She has heard of cancer in the past, and she's not been told the truth, so she can't prepare what she should do in the end. And I'll tell you why the patient must know what is happening and prognosis, because there are many things that you want to do in your life. And I'll give you examples in our own thing. When the patient came to know, he said, oh, really? I need to visit this temple. I'd made a vow, before I die, I'll visit. So we made sure, pain, gave them tablets, told the family what to do. He went for that pilgrimage, came back and died. There's another mother. There are other things. She had her daughter and a son had left the house, was not talking to her, not talking to the sister, and things like that. And the mother said, no, before I die, I need to meet my son. I want to make up with him and want him back. So our counselor worked for about 2-3 months to get in touch with that son, talk to the son and all. Finally, both the son and daughter were with her, and only then she held their hands and died peacefully. So, I've not talked to my brother for years. I have to talk to my brother. So that closure in your lives. So when you say don't tell them, and finally when you talk to the mother saying, oh, do you know what is happening? If the counselor says, do you know, of course I know something is going wrong and that I'm going, but my children won't tell me. So this is, I think the United States, it's the other extreme in many parts of the world. The moment a patient comes, oh, you've got this, there are, 90% of chances that you'll die in the next 2 months. So that's a bit of a, act sitting across the table first time you go. I wouldn't say that we in India are not prepared for that as yet.
It's called a difficult conversation, and it's actually a very neglected part of medical studies, which is communication. How to communicate something like this in a way that will be, it is bad news.
Yeah.
It is bad news. You cannot change the bad news, but you can change the way you tell it.
Tell them.
And communication is so important because it has been proved that where doctors have good communication, the
Absolutely.
rage and grief that often fuels attacks on doctors when someone has died notably drops because you've been talked through the process.
Absolutely. And I think this is something all medical professionals, and I think many of us in India need to know how to talk to our patients. That's what you were telling me, talk about Shankar who's sitting here and yeah, you know, he's going to read.
Stand up, Shankar, for a moment, just so everyone can see one more.
No, you know what? I'll tell you why. Because when I was the dean of Sion Hospital, I thought one of the things we lack wholly is that our doctors and nurses don't talk kindly. It's a municipal hospital. I had 10,000 deliveries alone. Can you imagine the number of patients, rush of patients? And yet, the way we treated was, and they were poor patients. So when someone is poor, the way we treat is different. You know, you take it for granted. So I wanted to change it. I had all these ideas, brilliant ideas, where wherever I work, I get this brilliant. So I said, whom should I ask? And I said, I'll ask Indian ISAPs, where there's behavior change. And I said, this is a municipal hospital, don't expect any payment. That's my first sentence to anyone I meet, don't expect. So we had Shankar who came there and he tried, you know, SWOT analysis, nothing worked. Finally, I tried what was called, you will remember AI, but not this AI. It was appreciative inquiry, where you, appreciative inquiry is you don't look at your weaknesses and things, you only think of the positives in you and how you can change your life and those around you with the positives. And we used it, all our doctors, poor things, there when you are the dean, you can make everybody attend this. So doctors, nurses, and ayabais and everybody, we used that and it brought about change and they worked through what they could do. I remember one a sweeper from a Rowley camp, a hospital close by, said, you know what I did? I knew I had the strength. She said there were no lights coming to the hospital at night. I went to the corporator, I took my friends, and finally, in 3 months, we got the lights only because we worked through her strength. So that is appreciated. And now, of course, in all our work in the slums, when we have women's groups, we use the same appreciative because women in the slums, most women don't think of the strengths they have. You know, so we work through the sun. We say, what are the Indian goddesses? We have Lakshmi, Saraswati, Durga. They are Indian god. Of course, you have it all in you. And to bring about change in themselves and their society. So all our 7,000 volunteers in the slums, women are now fighting for, you know, empowered because we use. So thanks, Shankar. So that's.
I think we should open for questions now. If you have a question, put up your hand. We will give preferential options to young people. And family members can go last because they can ask Armida anything they want later. Yeah. Anyone at the back? Otherwise, Kesang, you can have it. Yeah.
The question I have, you spoke about dying at home and how beautiful it is to die at home surrounded by family. But the conditioning is to keep trying to keep the person alive, keep trying to keep and taking the person to the hospital. So I'm just wondering, how do we break that mindset? Sometimes old people have been taken to the hospital zillions of times before they
You know,
finally.
that is exactly what we say, that if you have to break that mindset, behavior change. And the earlier we start talking about death with younger people, with adults in colleges, and with that, you know, this is what can happen. And slowly, I think because of palliative care, that's the same thing, Kesang, because of palliative care, when you tell patients that, yes, you can keep the patient in the hospital, but he'll die alone in the intensive care. What do you think your father? The first thing is you ask, these are the questions we've used, at least I've used. If you were in this position, would you like to be in intensive care alone or at home? At home. Or the other question is, what would your father or mother want? No, no, my father always wanted to die peacefully at home. So it takes a long time. It's no short formula or some one pill that will change this. Traditionally, this is what they expect. Actually, traditionally in India, people died happily at home and they were expected to die and they knew they'll die. Thanks to doctors, hospitals, and technology, we don't allow people to die today. That's unfortunate in some ways, but then we save a lot of lives of people who matter.
The language of medicine is also to blame because we talk about when someone has cancer, you say she's a fighter, you have to fight this disease, in a battle, this is like, I mean, you have to win. This is your body, you're in that body, you have to learn to live with the body. I have this lovely friend, Parsi, who had stomach cancer and he lived with it for 20 years because he called it Behram. He named it. And when he ate, he would say, Behram, aa tara mate. Now this is for you, Behram. Baki mara mate. The rest is for me. And Behram seemed to listen. Quite contrary to all this thing, Behram stayed small, lived there. He just like treated it like a really good friend. I'm not saying this is the way to go. I'm saying go to the doctor. Yeah.
I think good way. No, no, it's a good way. I think if you accept it and you take it for granted and let it be, then there are. So it's nothing that you have to. That's why percentages you'll die in 3 months' time and all. That's not true. Yeah.
And anyway, we're all going to die. Here's a flash. Over there, someone else.
Hello. I don't have a question, but I have a same thing. My mother was 78 or something, and she had kidney failure because of something urinary infection. So the kidney got trapped, and so she was not accepting that kidney is not functioning properly, and we were taking her to the hospital. I was earlier in Banaras. My sister was there, and myself in Delhi. So we used to share our mother. One person used to get tired, the other person we used to take. So we used to think if we'll take her for the dialysis, her BP goes down, and we'll one day bring her body back. That fear was too much for us. So we started peritoneal dialysis. So we're doing dialysis at home. It was 4 times a day. And with that, we had to do it 4.5 years. And she died a normal death
Yay!
That's true.
I'm so glad.
with no infection. The
Wonderful.
only thing is the material was coming home. We have to remember how much that liquid we were putting in the tummy, and then how much is coming out, input, output. That calculation we were doing. We were both of us students of science, and then she was having a normal life, wheelchair bound, going to the park. No break. And you say, why are you people are doing? I am fine. See, I go to the bathroom also. It was all the extra water which was coming.
Lovely.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Over there. Yeah.
So I have a question. If you now you said the patient should know what they are going through, what the illness is. If the person is a child, how would you explain to them what is happening in case of a terminal illness?
You'll be surprised. We also practice. I'm a pediatrician. We do adult, but we have also pediatric palliative care. And you will be surprised how much the patient knows. So we don't tell the patients directly. And we, through different type of, it could be play therapy, it could be art therapy, different types of therapy. And one very well in Vadia Hospital, they have a pediatric palliative care unit, and there were 2 people in the ward, lots of children in the ward, and two people who had cancer. They were very friendly, close friends, and one day one of them died. So the other child was still there, and we were wondering what the child felt, what is it? And the counselor asked her the next day, you don't miss the child? No, I knew that the child is going to die, but I was wondering why. But no one came and told me. They could have told me that. So children also know. And depending on the age, the toughest time are the adolescent people, where they understand quite a lot and they are fighting it and the anger and things like that. But when you counsel them, there is a way of telling even the youngest child that, they understand, and prepare. You don't have to tell them you're going to die. You never use terms like that for children. But through play therapy and things like that, they know.
There's this lovely story I was told about about a girl in a hospice, and her friend died, and so she kept asking every nurse and doctor what happened to that friend. And finally, there was one nurse who said, "You know, right, what happened?" And she said, "Yes, I know." So she said, "Why are you asking everyone?" She said, "I wanted to see who would be honest with, so that when my time comes and I ask a question, I will know who the honest persons are and I will ask them." It is such clarity of vision, and the clarity of vision also allows for the arc. Okay, so like, I mean, how many of you think if you had like 6 months to live, you would want to sit for an exam? Definitely all of them. All the kids in hospital want to sit for the exam. Why? Because their friends are sitting. Because that's a normal life. Because that's what they want to do. So they will go and sit for the exam. And people say, what is the point of doing the exam? It's not your question. It's that kid who's deciding. They get to say, they want to go for the exam, they get to go for the exam. That's what we've got to do. You can't make judgment calls for them. You ask them, what do you want to do? And they get to say it. Yeah?
Yeah, and you know, this is very important. The ethics of palliative care. Autonomy is very important. Suppose there's a patient, maybe your parent, sibling, or whoever it is, or child, let that person decide. If that person says, I want to go to the hospital, I want ventilation, I want it all, it is their decision. So should be autonomy. You should not judge for that person. So if they say do this, if they say please take me home, then please, you are not deciding for that. So autonomy is very important when you are taking a decision.
Yeah, over there.
Madam Armida,
Yeah.
uh, yours is an NGO which you have done tremendous work, and congratulations for that. Do you get any support, whether from the government or the political support? Why I'm asking you is whether for your personnel or financial or infrastructure.
So, you know what? I want to tell you that we have tremendous support from the government, municipal corporation, and all, but not monetarily. I'll tell you where we get support. See, as an individual, as an NGO, how much can we do? If we want to take it across the city, across the state, across the country, we have to work with the systems. So for example, in our NGO, the whole maternal health program, neonatal health, which is trying to save lives of mothers and babies, our partners are the BMC that looks after health. And we work through every hospital. We've started a referral system through every hospital. So they are our partners. For nutrition, for example, government runs ICDS, they're our partners. So now we have taken not only in Mumbai, we're going to other states working. We are not working, we work through their workers. And so even now for palliative care, we've started OPDs in Sion Hospital and in Cooper Hospital, medical colleges. So for violence against women, we partner with the police. We've trained 1,000 policemen in Bombay. We sit in their police stations. So, you know, there is a way of partnering, and we get full support from the government, municipality, because we want to take it across, not in a small area in a slum. So if you need to work, for example, if you want to do palliative care, you can't do it individually or like an NGO. You have to work with, and I think that's what Ira does. In South Goa, she's working with the government. The government has given her an ambulance, and I think they've given her a nurse and physiotherapist. So two people has been given by government. So because she's working with the government, she can cover the whole of South. If they work again in North and all, I think the whole system. So work with the existing system.
I think your model.
But also you have to remember that Dr. Fernandez is a force of nature. She does not give up. Okay, she will sit there and wait and wear them down and make sure they do it.
I do hope that your model gets copied or followed in Goa. I've written about it,
Yeah.
I've spoken about it, and I hope your
They will.
model gets copied and followed in Goa.
That's what Jerry says. The two things you have to use when working with government systems: patience and perseverance. If you have patience, perseverance, you can bring about a change, I think. They will listen. Don't get angry and don't run them down.
Any more questions?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Also, just one more. You know, I had read somewhere that abroad, especially for neonatal care, they got in older ladies, you know, who the grandmothers, and got them purposefully occupied by coming in the afternoons to just sit with the little babies, to hug them or to just cradle them. That's something that we don't do in India. And I was just thinking that's such a beautiful opportunity to also bring in, you know, the older ladies who want to be occupied, you know, purposefully, and it meets both purposes beautifully. So just, I mean, why aren't we doing it?
I'll tell you what happens in India.
And women,
The
yeah.
family structure is such that mother doesn't leave the baby. So mother is there. That's why we use, you've forgotten, but talking about that when it said decrease mortality, I think one of the main reasons, because promoted breastfeeding and ensured every baby, when the mother came, she breastfed a baby. So our mothers are there, they're feeding the baby, they're expressing milk for the baby. The milk bank I started to make sure everybody got human milk. That's so important. But our family culture, so when the mother goes home, and remember when you go in, the Indian tradition is when you have your first baby, you go to your mother's house, you don't go to your mother-in-law's house. So there is the mother, there is the grandmother, and everybody supporting you. So I suppose when a culture changes, then older people. But babies do a lot to senior citizens. Homes for the aged, you send children, senior citizens are very happy. So that's a thing that works with, the senior citizens.
And the grandmothers of India are here. I be working their butts off. They got no time. Okay, you have a question.
Hello, so my name is Rachel, and like this whole talk about palliative care really resonated with me because my father is a doctor, and he in fact started a palliative care in our village. It's called Living Happily with Diabetes. So yes, so like my whole family is coming from a science background, but I'm an art student. So how how can we as young people from a non-science field, we can't be doctors and nurses, so how can we as young people see a field in palliative care as a career option?
What lovely question. Yeah. First, there is psychology, and counselors. My God, they're really the need of the hour, because we have aunties as counselors. And counselors supposed to try and lead you to your truth. We have aunties who want to tell you their truth. Just like now, you drink 5 glasses of water in the morning, and you take God's name 100 times, and you will be fine. That kind of nonsense goes on. So we need really young people who are caring, considerate, but willing to shut up and help that person. Okay, so that's one very clear field. The second, I think, is like, even with living with diabetes, there's so much paperwork that has to be done. Someone has got to do, right? So when I started trying to do stuff in the public sphere, I wanted to go and hold people's hands and all. I wanted to do good work and all. I was told very clearly, you come and edit for us because that's your skill. You're not going to go out on the field. We don't trust you to hold anyone's hand. Okay, you got no patience. But you can sit here and you can edit our journal. For 17 years, I edited that journal. Okay, so there is always like you have to just show up. Jo hazir wo wazir. Go show up and say, what can I do? What can I do? Yeah, and they will find a job for you because it's something that has to be done. Do not say this is boring work. Because it is boring work, but the boring work has to be done too. And by doing the boring work, you're taking that boring work from Armida and saying, you go and do the work that you're. And in that humility is your strength. Yeah?
I also want to add, like in Kerala, everybody is a volunteer for palliative care. So if you're talking about diabetic patient and someone is homebound, just go and chat. Don't say like Jerry says, how are you, uncle or auntie? That's not. So you cheer them up. We have started something called Connect and Care in Bombay, where we visit homebound senior citizens. You go there, cheer them up. No prayers, nothing. You play You play music, you sing with them, you play games with them, Scrabble, cards, and say, what would you like? So cheer them up, even for a half an hour, 1 hour, that's enough. So, you don't have, either you can do, like he says, use your skills to help an organization, or even whatever you like, cheer them up. Read, there are blind people, you read for blind people. There are so many things you can volunteer. So if I say I'll spend 2 hours a week, you can always find people you can go, but they must be willing. Yeah?
Okay, yeah. Can someone bring the mic up front to Ms. Jayavant?
One question. If I write my living will, which I have, and it's in a drawer at home, and I fall suddenly very sick, and my husband doesn't know where I've kept it, or even if he does, and if he's read it, and even if he's aware of it, he is the decision maker, not me. If I've had a stroke and I'm paralyzed or whatever, I'm taken to the hospital. So my living will is actually a paper that is lying somewhere unless it is shown and followed. Right? So the person who's giving the consent has to know. So the oral conversation is far more important than the living will, which
No,
is
no.
kept.
See, suppose you made a living will, you meet with an accident, you can't talk and all. So this living will should not be kept in your drawer at home. First of all, when you do a living will, it has to be notarized. Remember, and since we have in Mumbai, we register it with the Mumbai Municipal Corporation. They have a place where you can register your living will. Your husband should have a copy, and you say, this is what I want. And if you have a general practitioner whom you normally go to when you're sick, give a copy, say, this is what I want. So it is not a document to be kept in the drawer at all. People should know that you have, notarize it and use it.
What happens if I don't have a living
And just to
will?
add to that, tell your children as well, and especially one child is living abroad. That abroad wala child has no faith in Indian medicine and thinks you are dying and thinks that they all want to kill my mommy. I'm coming down and I'm changing everything. So doctors like sit there looking tiredly as each one wave of relatives comes in and changes the decision. Yeah. So make it very clear and look them in the eye and say, you're going to follow this or my gold chain goes to her. Yeah.
Suppose there is no living will, and I haven't made a living will, or if I have it, it's locked in my cupboard. But orally, I have informed everyone, and they say in a hospital that we do not want to treat aggressively this patient. You can keep her comfortable till she dies. Would that be acceptable?
You know what? There are many hospitals. We use what is called do not resuscitate. It's called DNR. If you give a DNR, you can sign. But it is not a legal thing. It's not legally accepted.
So
But
would
the hospitals,
would the hospital accept it for do not resuscitate for the heart is fine, but what if they say that we want to give her some inotropes or some ventilation
no,
or something?
do not resuscitate will be inotropes,
Includes
ventilation,
everything?
dialysis, and measures that are aggressive to keep you alive.
So that is acceptable. May
Yeah.
not be a legal provision, but it is acceptable. That is.
No, I don't have a question. I just wanted to respond to that Rachel's statement. So one way you talked about was to be a volunteer for palliative care. There are also organizations. There is an organization run by a friend of mine called Caregiver Sati.
Yeah.
Who are so you don't have to be a palliative care volunteer, but you can be a friend to a person who's doing palliative care, because I think there's a lot of psychological impact when you have to look after your aged parents, etc. And so that person also needs help, and so I think there is a way in which you can get involved, may not be directly with the patient, but also with people who provide that palliative care.
You know what, Shankar, I have a thing. You know what happens unless you know how to listen. Counseling is a skill, and we doctors never allow the patients to talk. We're talking all the time. This will happen, do this, do this. We don't listen, unfortunately. And I'm a doctor, and I'm telling you that. I'm trying to change. But you know what? A counselor doesn't talk, listens. So you have to be trained to some extent before you go do that, even for caregivers.
Which is why they wouldn't let me near anybody to hold their hands. Okay, I think we are coming to the end of the session. I want you to do one thing. Like, if you're buying the book, I want you to embarrass Armida further by making her sign it as well. Okay, thank you so much. You've been such a wonderful audience. Vivek, you were completely right. I said 9:45. Who is going to come? Who is going to be there? But look at you. Give yourself a great big hand.
I want to say about Jerry's book, don't ask for my signature. I can't decipher that myself, so Jerry will do. But everything about palliative care in such a lovely way, the way he's written it, and the incidents and the stories he's covered, the whole spectrum of palliative care, and just a lovely and easy to, like Vivek said, easy to and an enjoyable book to read on a subject that is something that is now, that frightens you a little.
Thank you all once again. And now a big round of applause for us.
Big hand for Jerry Pinto and Dr. Armida Fernandez, prides of Goa, prides of India. Thank you very much for that wonderful session. Please keep your seats for the next session.